We're working on something to make it great for the veterans, because the veterans have been treated very, very unfairly. I don't want to see veterans waiting in line for 2 weeks. And, you know, in many cases, they have a minor illness, and it takes so long to see a doctor, it turns out to be a major illness and beyond that.
Donald Trump complaining about the Department of Veterans Affairs yesterday. The president-elect, a self-proclaimed champion of vets, is reportedly contemplating privatizing the scandal-ridden VA. Proponents of that move arguing that it could give veterans more authority over their own health care. Many prominent veterans group fear it will ultimately reduce the quality of care, with the VA in shambles and horror stories still trickling out. Could this be the key to turning things around? Joining me now is former Senator Scott Brown and former Marine Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff. Scott Brown, he talks about a public-private option. Can you explain exactly how that might work?
Well, you obviously right now you have the choice program that Congress passed. It's still the biggest problem with doctors is the fact that they're not getting reimbursed properly. They're slow in paying the actual doctors. A public-private partnership. When I spoke to the president-elect about this very important issue, he asked about, well, can't we just privatize it? And I said, listen, we have certain hospitals that are doing a wonderful job, vet clinics and others, who deal in prosthetic care and other types of things specific to soldiers. And depending on where you live, for example, you can go next door and get that care. But there are some areas that you have to drive for miles and miles, you know, hundreds of miles to get care. And some of them are not as good as the others. There's so many different fiefdoms, so many different problems in the VA. To have the public-private partnership means outsourcing maybe certain mental health issues to get the waiting lines down. The biggest issue in this whole thing, the biggest problem, David, is when you're taking a veteran out of the VA and giving him to a private facility, that money's leaving the system. And if you have so many people leaving the system, then the VA itself will implode and will fail. So you got to strike a balance.
But would veterans out there, would they be essentially given a voucher that would allow them to, if they wanted to take it to a VA hospital, they could, but if they decided they'd be treated better at another private hospital, they could take it there? Is that what it amounts to?
Well, Congress made some opportunities for veterans who fulfilled certain parameters to go to that private doctor, and it's really not working. They kind of rushed it through. I'm all ears, and there's so many different solutions out there. There's so many different veterans groups, the American Legion and others, who have solutions, and it needs to be done together. You're going to need the blessing of Congress, the president, the veterans group, and the actual vets to get this done. It's not just you're going to wave a magic wand and it's done. It needs to be a thoughtful process, but you need to do it quickly because vets are dying.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think you need somebody in there who's going to really bang it out and get right at it.
Gunnery Sergeant Duff, what's your experience with VA hospitals?
Well, more often than not, people fail to remember that they have the second largest budget next to DOD and over 350,000 employees. What we're getting at is not a money problem, not a personnel problem. We're dealing with a management problem. And in many of these VA facilities, they're not even hiring veterans. Some of our upper-level management is approximately about 13% former veteran. Now, you can't tell me that the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force haven't trained plenty of medical professionals who are used to staffing and managing hospital care. Why is it they're not getting off of active duty and putting some of these senior level officers and senior level managers into these VA positions? Veterans will have compassion for veterans.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. By the way, it's $167 billion a year. It's a huge program. But Scott Brown, as you mentioned, some people like their VA hospitals. There are 144 VA hospitals. There are 1,200 outpatient clinics. If somehow people decide to take their vouchers just to all the veterans take their vouchers to the private hospitals, some of the good hospitals may suffer. I just want to shrink that bureaucracy that the VA has become, because a lot of the $167 billion is wasted on bureaucrats, right?
Well, there's a lot of waste in government, as we all know, David. They're like drunken sailors, you know, just keep giving them the money, they'll keep spending it.
Right.
That being said, there are some angels working in the VA system, so they're not all bad, and we need to tell those success stories. But there are people there that are just cashing a check, and as the Gunny said, there's a tremendous Yeah, they're bureaucrats, you know, lifetimers, whatever you want to call them. And when a veteran walks into those facilities, they should be like they're walking into, you know, a Trump hotel, a five-star hotel, and they should say, "Sir, ma'am, what can we do for you? How can we help you?" And they're not. And it's just a different mentality. It's a different way of doing things. And I think we can strike a balance. And I think if you do it right, then you're going to have those hospitals. These veterans won't want to leave. If you reduce the wait times, if you get them the care and coverages that they need, like right away, why would you leave?
Exactly. That's the way it should be.